The epic drama unfolded in countless settings over a long span of time, centering not on an individual, but rather a cast of millions. Over the almost 400 years of the slave trade, from the late 15th to the late 19th century, 12.4 million souls were loaded onto slave ships and carried through a middle passage across the Atlantic to hundreds of delivery points stretched over thousands of miles. Along the dreadful way, 1.8 million of them died, their bodies cast overboard to the sharks that followed the ships. Most of the 10.6 million who survived were thrown into the bloody maw of a killing plantation system, which they would in turn resist in all ways imaginable. Yet even these extraordinary numbers do not convey the magnitude of the drama. Many people captured in Africa died as they marched in bands and coffles, human trains, to the slave ships, although the lack of records makes it impossible to know their precise numbers. Scholars now estimate that, depending on time and place, some portion between a tenth and a half of the captives perished between the point of enslavement and the boarding of the slave ship. A conservative estimate of 15%, which would include those who died in transit and while being held in barracoons and factories on the coast, suggests another 1.8 million deaths in Africa. Another 15%, or more depending on region, 1.5 million, would expire during the first year of laboring life in the New World. From stage to stage, expropriation in Africa, the Middle Passage, initial exploitation in America, roughly 5 million men, women, and children died. Another way to look at the loss of life would be to say that an estimated 14 million people were enslaved to produce a yield of 9 million longer surviving enslaved Atlantic workers. Du Bois's most magnificent drama was a tragedy. The so-called Golden Age of the drama was the period 1700 to 1808, when more captives were transported than any other, roughly two-thirds of the total. More than 40% of these, or 3 million altogether, were shipped in British and American ships. This era, these ships, their crews, and their captives are the subjects of this book.